The champagne flute slipped from my fingers the moment I heard those words, crystal shards scattering across the marble floor like my carefully laid plans. 6 months of preparation. $3,200 in deposits. 50 family members who had traveled hundreds of miles. All reduced to nothing by a single phone call from my father, Victor Vance, the man who built an empire on concrete and steel but couldn't build a single genuine relationship with his own flesh and blood. I stood frozen in the opulent lobby of the Grandview Hotel, still wearing my burgundy silk dress that I had chosen specifically for this moment. The birthday celebration I had orchestrated down to every last detail was supposed to be perfect. For once, I thought, maybe I could give our fractured family something beautiful, something that would make my father proud of me instead of disappointed in who I had become. The hotel manager, a thin man with nervous eyes, cleared his throat and repeated the devastating news. "I'm terribly sorry, Miss Vance. Your father, Mr. Victor Vance, personally called this morning to cancel the entire event. He emphasized it was unnecessary and requested that we not contact him again regarding this matter." Unnecessary. The word hit me like a physical blow. I had spent countless evenings after work calling vendors, tasting menus, selecting flowers, coordinating with family members across 3 states. I had used my own savings, my own connections, my own reputation in the marketing world to make this celebration happen, and he had dismissed it all as unnecessary. Around me, the chaos was building. My cousin Roger had driven 12 hours from Texas with his 3 young children, who were now crying in the echoing lobby. Aunt Maria clutched her carefully wrapped gift, confusion written across her weathered face. Uncle James was already on his phone, probably trying to change his flight back to California. The sound of disappointed voices filled the air, a symphony of shattered expectations. Sophia, my stepmother, approached with hesitant steps. Her usually composed demeanor was cracking, revealing the uncertainty beneath. "Harper, sweetheart, what's happening? Where's your father? The children are asking questions I don't know how to answer." I felt something cold settle in my chest as I pulled the sealed envelope from my purse, the one the hotel manager had handed me along with his apology. With trembling fingers, I opened it and read aloud the message that would change everything between my father and me forever. "Harper, real families don't need expensive parties to prove their love. This has always been about your ego, not about me. Don't contact me until you understand what truly matters." The words echoed through the lobby, and I watched as 50 faces turned from confusion to shock to anger. My grandmother Eleanor, all 85 fragile years of her, was helped through the entrance by my cousin David. She carried a leather-bound photo album in her arthritic hands, something she had spent weeks preparing, staying up late into the night to arrange pictures and write captions in her careful script. "What's Victor done now?" she asked, her voice carrying the weight of decades of disappointment in her only son. When the situation was explained to her, she simply sat down heavily in one of the lobby chairs, clutching that album to her chest. "I made this for him," she whispered, her voice breaking. "All our memories together." That was the moment something inside me snapped. Not broke, but snapped into sharp, clear focus. I looked around at these people, my people, who had rearranged their lives, spent their money, and invested their time to celebrate someone who couldn't even be bothered to show up. They deserved better. I deserved better. Instead of collapsing into tears or rage, I felt a strange calm wash over me. I stepped up onto a chair so everyone could see me, my voice cutting through the confused chatter. "Everyone, please listen. What my father did today was unacceptable, but we're not going to let his selfishness ruin this day. We came here to celebrate family, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Just give me 30 minutes. The next half hour was a whirlwind of phone calls and negotiations. I contacted every connection I had in the city, leveraging my reputation as a marketing director to secure a last-minute venue at the community center downtown. I arranged for the catering to be redirected, negotiated with the florist to move the arrangements, and somehow managed to salvage what should have been a disaster. But more than that, I made a decision that would redefine my relationship with my father forever. I would not call him. I would not text him. I would not give him the satisfaction of seeing me beg or plead or rage. Instead, I would simply let him live with the consequences of his choices. The impromptu celebration at the community center turned out to be more genuine and heartfelt than anything the fancy hotel could have provided. Without the pressure of impressing my father, people relaxed. Stories were shared, laughter filled the air, and my grandmother's photo album became the centerpiece of the evening, passed from hand to hand as family members reminisced over decades of memories. During the makeshift party, I noticed a woman in the corner taking photos and notes. She introduced herself as Jessica Chen, a local business journalist who had been at the hotel covering another event when she witnessed the entire cancellation drama. She was intrigued by how I had handled the crisis and asked if she could write about it. "It's not often you see someone turn a complete disaster into something beautiful," she said, her pen poised over her notepad. "Your father is Victor Vance of Vance Construction, isn't he? The Victor Vance who just landed the Morrison Plaza contract?" I simply nodded and told her she was welcome to write about whatever she had witnessed, sticking strictly to the facts. I didn't embellish or dramatize. I didn't need to. The truth was powerful enough on its own. The days that followed were a masterclass in the power of silence. My father called repeatedly, each voicemail growing more frustrated than the last. First, he wanted to explain his decision. Then he demanded I fix the situation. Finally, he ordered me to control the narrative before it got out of hand. I returned none of his calls. Jessica's article was published 3 days later with the headline, "Construction Mogul Builds $1 Million Empire, Destroys Family Event with Single Phone Call." It wasn't sensationalized or unfair. It was simply a factual account of what had happened, complete with quotes from family members and a photo of my grandmother clutching her photo album in the hotel lobby. The response was swift and devastating for my father's reputation. In the construction industry, personal character matters. Clients want to know they're dealing with someone reliable, someone who keeps their word. The article raised uncomfortable questions about a man who would break a promise to his own family and leave 50 relatives stranded in a hotel lobby. Sophia called me 2 days after the article was published. "Harper, I need you to know I had no idea what your father was planning. I thought we were all going to the party together." When I asked him about it that morning, he just said it was handled and left for the office. Her support meant everything to me, especially when she began sharing her own stories with friends and family about Victor's controlling behavior and emotional manipulation over the years. Sophia had been walking on eggshells around him for so long that she had almost forgotten what her own voice sounded like. The business consequences for my father began almost immediately. The Morrison Plaza project, his biggest contract in years, fell through when the client expressed concerns about character issues and reliability problems. Other potential clients started asking uncomfortable questions about his personal conduct. Meanwhile, my phone was ringing constantly with calls from his business associates, not to criticize me, but to express their sympathy and share their own concerns about Victor's behavior. It seemed that many people in his professional circle had witnessed his difficult personality over the years but had never felt comfortable speaking up. 2 weeks after the birthday debacle, Victor showed up at my office unannounced. I was in the middle of a client presentation when my assistant knocked and said my father was demanding to see me immediately. I excused myself from the meeting and found him pacing in our reception area like a caged animal. "We need to talk," he said, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. "Now." I led him to my office and closed the door, maintaining the calm demeanor I had cultivated since that day at the hotel. He immediately launched into a tirade about how I was destroying everything he had worked for and making him look like a monster to people who didn't understand the full situation. "Dad," I said quietly, "what full situation? You canceled a family celebration without telling anyone. You left 50 people standing in a hotel lobby. You broke Grandma Eleanor's heart. Those are the facts. I haven't editorialized or exaggerated anything." His face flushed red as he slammed his hand on my desk. "You little ingrate! Everything you have, I gave you. This job, this office, this life you think you've built for yourself. I made one phone call and you're acting like I committed murder." I stood up slowly, meeting his furious gaze with steady eyes. "You're right about one thing, Dad. You made one phone call. And that phone call told me everything I needed to know about what I really mean to you. Now I'm making a choice based on that information." "What choice?" he demanded. "The choice to stop seeking approval from someone who sees me as nothing more than an extension of his ego. The choice to stop sacrificing my own happiness and self-respect for someone who would humiliate me and our entire family without a second thought." He stared at me as if I had slapped him. "You can't be serious. You're my daughter. We're family. Family doesn't treat each other the way you treated me that day. Family doesn't dismiss each other as unnecessary. And family certainly doesn't expect someone to grovel and beg for forgiveness after being publicly humiliated." Victor tried several different tactics over the next few minutes. He attempted to minimize what had happened, calling it a misunderstanding. He tried to shift blame to me for being too sensitive. He even made veiled threats about how my defiance could affect my career. None of it worked. I had found something in myself that day at the hotel, something that had been buried under years of seeking his approval and trying to be the daughter he wanted. I had found my own strength. "I think you should leave now," I said, opening my office door. "I have work to do." He left, but not before promising that this wasn't over, that I would come to my senses and realize I needed him more than he needed me. The weeks that followed were both liberating and terrifying. I had spent so much of my life trying to earn my father's love and respect that I barely knew who I was without that driving need. But Sophia and I grew closer, bonding over our shared experience of Victor's controlling behavior. My grandmother Eleanor became a regular dinner companion, and I treasured our conversations about family history and her memories of a younger, kinder version of my father. The professional fallout for Victor continued to escalate. Jessica Chen's article had been picked up by several business publications, and the story of the canceled birthday party had become a cautionary tale about the importance of character in business relationships. 3 more major contracts fell through. and I heard through industry connections that potential clients were specifically asking about the birthday incident during initial meetings. A month after our confrontation in my office, I received a call from Victor's attorney requesting a meeting. I arrived at the law office to find my father looking haggard and defeated, nothing like the imposing figure who had dominated my childhood and young adult years. "Harper?" he began, his voice lacking its usual commanding tone. "I've lost everything. Contracts, partnerships, reputation. Even Sophia is talking about separation. You've won. What do you want?" I studied his face, seeing genuine distress but no real understanding of what he had done wrong. "I didn't set out to win anything, Dad. I just decided to stop losing myself in the process of trying to make you proud of me." He offered me partnership in what remained of his company, a share of the profits, even control over certain divisions. Each offer felt more desperate than the last, and I realized he still didn't understand that this wasn't about money or power or business advantage. "It's too late for that." I told him finally, "I don't want what you've built because I've seen how you built it and what it cost you and everyone around you. I'd rather build something of my own." That's exactly what I did. With the support of several investors who had grown disillusioned with Victor's methods, I started my own marketing consultancy specializing in construction and development companies. My first major client was one of the contractors who had been supposed to work with Victor on the Morrison Plaza project. 6 months after the birthday party disaster, I was standing on the roof deck of my new office building, hosting a small celebration for landing my third major client. The gathering was intimate and genuine, nothing like the elaborate productions I used to orchestrate to impress my father. Sophia was there, having finally filed for separation from Victor. My grandmother Eleanor sat in a comfortable chair, still sharp and observant at 85, telling stories that had the whole group laughing. "You know," Eleanor said to me as the evening wound down, "I spent 60 years trying to teach that boy about what really matters. You managed to teach him in 6 months what I couldn't teach him in 6 decades." I looked out over the city lights, thinking about the journey that had brought me to this moment. The scared, approval-seeking daughter who had stood in that hotel lobby was gone, replaced by a woman who knew her own worth and wouldn't compromise it for anyone. "Grandma," I said, "I don't think I taught him anything. I think I finally learned something about myself." The last I heard about Victor, he was living in a smaller apartment across town, his construction empire reduced to a handful of small projects. Sophia had moved in with her sister and was taking art classes, rediscovering the creative interests she had abandoned during their marriage. Sometimes I wondered if he ever understood what had really happened that day at the hotel. Not that I had won or that he had lost, but that his need to control and diminish others had finally caught up with him. The empire he had built on fear, manipulation, and disrespect for others had crumbled not because of any external attack, but because it was built on a foundation that couldn't support the weight of human relationships. As for me, I discovered that the most powerful form of revenge isn't destruction, but creation. Instead of tearing down what my father had built, I built something better without him. Instead of trying to hurt him the way he had hurt me, I simply removed myself from the cycle of pain and disappointment that had defined our relationship for so many years. The photo album my grandmother had made for his birthday sits on my bookshelf now, a reminder of the love that was offered and rejected, but also of the love that endures despite rejection. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is the opportunity to see the consequences of their choices clearly, without interference or rescue from those who care about them. I built my life on different principles than my father had built his empire. Where he had demanded loyalty through fear, I earned respect through integrity. Where he had controlled through manipulation, I led through inspiration. Where he had measured worth by submission, I celebrated independence and strength. The empire had fallen, but from its ruins, something much more valuable had grown. My own sense of self-worth, my own definition of success, and my own understanding of what it means to truly win at life. Not by defeating others, but by becoming the person I was meant to be, with or without anyone else's approval.